Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the NJC podcast. My name is Kieran Soar. I'm the People and Culture Director. And on this edition, we're going to be discussing International Men's Day. So International Men's Day is an event that was started in 2010 that aims to shine a spotlight on the well-being of men and boys. It focuses on three areas, which is making a positive difference to the well-being of lives of men and boys, raising awareness for charity supporting men and boys' well-being, and promoting a positive conversation about men, manhood, and masculinity. And I'm absolutely delighted for this edition to be joined by Reuben Heppelthwaite and Peter Joyce. Gentlemen, how are we?
Yeah, pretty good. Looking forward to this. I think it's a great subject and really great initiative, great world initiative.
Yep.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you for the invite and look forward to the discussion.
Not at all. I feel with the NJC community, obviously, you need no introduction, but for our listeners outside NJC, do you want to give a bit of an introduction to yourselves and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Reuben Heppelthwaite. I'm one of the owners and the co-CEO with my brother of Not Just Cleaning. And I've been in the cleaning industry for about 25 years. Prior to that, I was a building surveyor. My mum gave me an opportunity to join the family business back in 2000 and I haven't looked back. I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Cool. Peter Joyce, Operations Director for Not Just Cleaning. I've been in the cleaning industry since I was 18, started as a cleaner and worked my way up. I've been with NJC for now 3 years.
Excellent. Well, yeah, thank you very much for taking the time. And I'm really looking forward to hearing both your perspectives on this important subject. I think before we get cracking into the main content, I think what's quite profound for me is just having some initial conversations with people saying that we're recording this podcast, despite the fact that this event has been around since 2010. I'm still getting people saying to me, "Oh, I didn't know an International Men's Day existed."
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that for me really highlights that we need to do these sorts of conversations are really important. And
I think the more awareness around the subject, the more people that take the time to do a podcast or even talk to their friends and colleagues about the day is no bad thing. I think we're a lot further on probably now than we were when it was first developed in 2010. Something I found out the other day, I realised that one of the programmes, Loose Women, on I think it's ITV.
Yeah.
So for the day, which is Wednesday the 19th of November, they're actually turning it into Loose Men. I think they've been doing it for a couple of years, which I think something like that and the audiences that they get. Is going to raise a lot more awareness, and I think it's a good thing.
The day is all about sort of making a positive difference to the lives of men and boys right across the world. And some of the questions they get asked is, well, do we need an International Men's Day? But, if we look at the nitty-gritty, if we look at the specifics around well-being, so one of the topics we're going to be touching on is sort of mental health and sort of the suicide rate in men, particularly under 45. So men are 3 times more likely to die from suicide than women. And that means on average, 12 men will take their lives in any given day.
Okay.
If we also look at domestic violence, so it goes without saying, by far, it affects more women than men. So for every 3 victims, 2 will be female, 1 will be male. But where the disparity lies is in terms of seeking help. So only 1 in 10 men will tell the police or somebody else. Compare that with 1 in 4 women. If we look at wider society, 86% of rough sleepers are male and 955 of the prison population is male. And then we're also going to look a bit about men in the workplace around paternity leave. So you'll see there's quite a plethora of issues that we'll touch upon.
That's quite a statistic that 1 in 3 domestic abuse cases are against men. I think if you'd have asked me that question, I would have probably said something like maybe 1 in 10 instead of 1 in 3. But
I didn't know it was that.
Yeah, that's quite staggering actually.
Yeah. And every year when International Men's Day does happen on the 19th, charities see a sizable uptake in men seeking out support for these issues. So I think talking about it just for one day out of 365 is well worth it.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, I want to just open really by talking about your motivations for coming onto the podcast and what International Men's Day means to you. So you've obviously come from different backgrounds, you're at different stages of your lives, and no doubt have some light to shed on the topic of International Men's Day. So yeah, floor's yours, really.
Yeah, do you want me to go, Pete? So I think it's quite an important day for me and my wife. We have two sons who are now young men, age 20 and 18, and so I think this is a really important day, really, for that sort of generation, because I think what's not really understood in society are the pressures and the struggles that men face on a daily basis, and then they're unique to men. And I think any sort of awareness of raising those issues. So we'll talk about those issues today, and maybe we'll tell some stories of our own, how we've had tough times and things like that. And if that even makes one man feel more understood, or feel more that they can share their struggles and they don't feel ashamed to share those problems, I think we would have done a good thing. And so that's why I think the movement is really important.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, and for me, coming on here was obviously the invite, but it was the stats that you just read out. If you do just take a moment to actually read them and take it in, they are quite shocking, right? So whatever we can do as human beings, if we can help one person, help two, help three, it's worth it, right? It's one day out of 365. So that's my motivation to come on and try and spread awareness and talk about it.
Absolutely. And if we look at those stats, yes, they are shocking, but I don't think they're new, to be honest.
No,
they're not.
The only difference with sort of this day and age is that people are starting to talk about it. And if we go back 60 years ago, 70 years ago, those issues would probably still be manifesting, but the avenues to seek help weren't there. Or society's, or what's probably more likely society's expectation was very different.
I think that the world's changed a lot in the last 30, 40 years, and the expectations of a man, the traditional values, if you like, be strong, be reliable, hardworking, those values are still there, but they need to be, or they have adapted, and men need to adapt to be much more emotionally aware these days in the workplace, at home, everywhere. And rightly so, I think it's definitely a progression for men, but I don't think the pathway has necessarily always been. I think the old values was very certain. This is the way that things were, and you had to do, and things have changed very, very quickly, and for the right reasons. But I think navigating that has been quite difficult for men in general.
Yeah. And in terms of when you guys were growing up, so if we want to talk about how those things have changed in real life. So certainly when, I remember my time as a young boy, as an adolescent, we live in a completely different world than where we were. So do you want to talk about your personal experiences around the changes that we've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I can look at when I was an adolescent, and then when my boys were going through adolescence, and like you say, there's a vast change. So there's what there would be like a 30-year gap in between. So a lot has changed. I think there's a lot more expected from boys, but I think what society doesn't really get is that boys' brains, particularly in adolescence, develop a lot slower than girls.
Yeah.
So where I think that the education system, if you like, was probably more geared towards boys back when I was going through adolescence, I think it's more geared now towards girls.
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily maybe enough consideration for that in education. I think that probably is something that the people in power need to be sort of looking at and changing. Otherwise, I think boys are just going to start to fall further and further behind in education.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the values, if you like. I think my wife and I have brought our children up in a similar way in which I was brought up, with those traditional sort of values of, work hard, put the effort in, give to society, and just generally look after people around you, and offer something to your family, to your friends, to your to your work colleagues, and I think that's. So I my personal experience is that I don't think it's changed a great deal apart from maybe the education system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Peter, your experiences. So you're a father yourself, I understand.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I've got 3. I think it's different. How I was brought up as a child to how I brought up my children, or bringing up my children, have changed. And whilst I have no kind of how I was brought up, I'm happy, and got no issues. I think the world has changed, and you have to kind of adapt to them times. I do think a lot of this, mentioned the point about kind of like the stats. You're right. They're not probably new, with social media and all of that kind of stuff. They've probably now come out more. But I do think like the social media impact is impacting our youth, is impacting that, and is giving them a story or a narrative to maybe go the other way. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, that's a very important point around social media, because it absolutely shapes all our lives, whether we like it or not. We can't get away from it, and there's a new generation that's coming up that's only known social media. Whereas I think when we were growing up, it was just certainly in our childhood we didn't have it. It was just coming in, and
still don't have it today.
We sort of had to balance the two worlds, didn't we? We saw that bridge. But and the new generation coming up, they've only known social media, and there's sort of different narratives out there in terms of what the idea of an ideal man should be.
Yeah.
And we are seeing that's having an effect on the guys growing up today. Yeah,
I think there's been a lot in the media, and there's a lot which is negative towards masculinity. So I think that positive masculinity is something that we all need to try to embrace, and masculinity isn't a problem that needs to be fixed.
Yeah,
it's just something that needs to be adapted. So men need to be able to hold on to those traditional values and adapt their emotional awareness and emotional intelligence to adapt to the world around them. And I think a positively masculine man would be able to do that and thrive, actually. But I think that there's help out there, and there are resources out there to enable you to learn. Really, I mean, that's what learn the emotional awareness, and it's about reading around the subject, but talking about it as well. And I think that's why podcasts like this are important. Yeah, and on that point, looking at the International Men's Day website, so they've done a little bit of a segment around masculinity, and they've quoted Professor Camille Paglia from Harvard University, who I think puts it very succinctly and nicely. And she says masculinity is an enormous creative force, not a disease to be eradicated. Yeah, and I think that's interesting, because would you concur that there is a bit of a narrative like that is sort of existing out there that says that masculinity is a bad thing? Yeah, I mean, I think you hear almost daily, don't you, toxic masculinity, or it's almost a slight on a man if he does something wrong. It's that's toxic. Yeah. Toxic masculinity. I think men should be a force for good if they're honourable in their conduct, and in the home, at work, in the community. Masculinity is a force for good, and it should be regarded as that. Of course, when people step out of line, and of course, toxic masculinity does exist. Yeah. And, we need to eradicate that by teaching, as elder sort of statesmen as I am, you guys as well now, we need to lead the way by example.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way that we can do it, is by having more people doing the right things,
Yeah.
so that the younger generation follow that path. Yeah.
And it was Churchill who said, "So boys who learn courage grow into men of character." So I think that's linked to what you've kind of said with setting the path for the younger generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pete, what would you say?
Yeah, there's a lot of negative. And yeah, I feel like that's all what gets talked about. It's negative, really. I know obviously the positives does get talked about, but I guess that's where we all have to. We're all here for a reason, and we're all here to try and give that positive message, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's honest conversation about it as well, and it's also calling yourself out as well, where you might not have necessarily acted the way that you want. It's about learning from that as well, isn't it? And being able to reflect honestly of your own conduct. Yeah.
And I think that's the key point, because I think, to throw my 2 pennies into it, I think definitely male privilege does exist, and I've experienced that. I'll be perfectly honest. I've seen it everywhere.
Yeah.
And but we as males of where we set the example, we need to be sort of calling that out, and sort of creating a level playing field for people who may not have those opportunities, and ensuring that we've got we operate in an inclusive environment as much as possible. Around the sort of 2 schools of masculinity, just before we go on to another topic, so the toxic masculinity. Why do you think that that sort of is there in the first place, and why do young men and boys get sort of sucked into that vacuum, or why may they?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I think there's a statistic. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the UK, 1 in 5 homes, the father doesn't live with the family, and so there are probably, I would say, a lot of young boys where they're looking for guidance from somebody, a father figure as such, or something like that, which where they don't have that father figure on a daily basis, they can get drawn into maybe more toxic environments, and like, as I say, I think that's if you were to see that your boys or were getting involved in that, that's when parents, mothers, fathers should step in and say, look, this isn't the path to follow. These guys are not a good role model for you, and to take that on board and take responsibility for that really was what it is, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. Peter?
To be fair, I have to kind of agree with what you said, Reuben. I think that is key. I also think social media is a massive influence in all of that. So the 1 in 5 where a father figure isn't present on a day-to-day, plus the social media aspect. And I think with all of that coupled in, I think that's where the negative comes from. So
kind of asking the individual, help me understand why what appeals to you about this type of thinking. So is it fair to say, if we can identify, where, they're looking for some guidance or lacking some guidance, we can plug that gap?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've addressed, or we talked about, how difficult it is being a young man in modern society. And I think the pressures that social media now is a big pressure as well. And I think a lot of young boys can feel quite isolated.
Yeah.
And therefore they're looking for some sort of guidance. So they're vulnerable to these ideas that, and they're quite clever about how they draw them in, and on social media to get followers and likes and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a commercial aspect to it as well. So I think wherever we can, we just need to be able to sort of protect our boys from that type of toxic material.
But if we look at it, we see boys aren't performing as well as girls in school. At universities, the intake rate of men is significantly lower.
Yeah.
Now, so men are finishing school with boys are finishing school with less qualifications, and
the dropout rate's a lot higher as well.
Yeah. And coupled with that, there's a whole sort of social media raft to say that, if you're a man and you're not earning this amount of money by this age, or if you cannot look after your family, you are no longer a man. You're not a proper man. So that creates a vacuum, as I would put it.
Yeah. I think there's that sort of male dominance and bravado and all those sort of things, which you say they are toxic traits, which obviously some men do act that way.
Yeah.
And I think the likes of people like Andrew Tate, they what's the word I'm looking for? They make it much bigger than it is and try to glorify it and accentuate it and trying to glorify it, and it's all for likes, etc. It's all for for content and for commercial reasons, but as I say, I think they're not the only threats that children have ever faced. If you go back to say they were always threats that your parents were trying to protect you from. I just think that the social media has made it so much more accessible for to get to vulnerable children that maybe are not happy or are isolated. I don't necessarily have the direction that they used to probably have in a traditional sense.
Yeah. And what would you say one of the solutions is, perhaps? I know it's a very speculative question, but how early do we start in schools? Is it about talking to young boys around what it means to be a boy and sort of the values that we espouse and what good looks like, I guess?
Yeah, I think, one quite radical idea is that boys, so apparently something I was reading in this book, actually, funny enough, I'm listening to it, and I bought it's Of Boys and Men by Richard V. Reeves, and one of the sections in there is all about education and the gender gap between boys and girls in education, and he comes up with quite a radical solution, which is that boys start 2 years later. Because in adolescence, the development, I think, if I remember the correct terminology, the hippocampus is about 2 years behind. And we've all sort of been there. I remember when the boys would sort of bring a girl who was a friend home from school or whatever, and you were immediately, when they were 13 or 14 or whatever, and you would think, oh my goodness, the girls are so much more mature, and and we've probably all seen that, in our, in our cousins or our children, and I think, so that's a radical idea. I think it would take a lot of getting past in government, but maybe that's something that should be considered. Yeah,
absolutely. Pete, if you think about the time sort of we were in school then, what would you like to see sort of different for your kids?
I think in school, more conversations earlier on. And I think they're doing that on other kind of topics and all that. But I think, how to kind of just grow up. Obviously, we want kids to be kids. We don't want to grow them up too early. The suggestion of Reuben is great. But I think just talking about it, I think if we can talk about it, it's a step in the right way.
And linking on to that, so we've talked around the effects of social media and what I mentioned in the introduction around the high rate of male suicide that we're seeing. So again, I'm going to reiterate, I don't think it's a new sort of phenomenon, if you want to call it that. It's been happening, for generations. I think the only difference now is that we're starting to talk about it. But what would you say is sort of the cause of a lot of the male suicides that we're seeing? We know that, certainly anecdotally, that it's around males not being able to reach out and find help in their moment of need. Yeah,
I think one of the most disastrous things is that most suicides could be prevented, and if the person actually asks for help, I think that's the big problem. Is there's obviously a lot of pride in this sort of male psyche, and it's about probably teaching men to be able to speak out, and having that confidence that they're not going to be that they're going to be encouraged rather than knocked back when they're facing a difficult time, because we've all. You can't go through life. Life's full of ups and downs, and sometimes those downs are really big downs. There's a lot of pressures on men to provide, to be reliable, to feed their family, etc., etc. And if I think, as in my experience, I think a conversation, even a conversation at the right time, to try to get somebody talking about the issues they're facing, because I think we all recognise when someone's struggling, but we don't necessarily always ask them that, a really important question to get them talking about the situation, or to make them feel comfortable, so they don't feel vulnerable, or they don't feel that they're sharing intimate secrets. So I think a short conversation, an honest conversation at the right time, actually I think could save a life. And it's just trying to spot where you think people are struggling and trying to get them talking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for me, I think why boys don't talk is because they feel ashamed that they're going to be laughed at. They're not going to
boys don't cry.
Be taken seriously.
Not going to be taken seriously. So I think that's a massive kind of fact. But there's loads of pressures on men to provide, to be the man, as people say. So with all of that, I think that's why generally it's unfortunately the suicides are quite high.
What was the stats that you mentioned earlier? Did you say that it was it was 3 in every 4 suicides are male? Or
so men are 3 times more likely to die from suicide than women, and on average 12 men take their own lives a day.
Okay. And that's in the UK? Yeah.
But it's about knowing. So if you've got a friend group or a family group, it's about... So I think saying, how are you? I don't think that's enough these days.
No.
Because most people say, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the conversation on that topic is done. I think it's about, how they are. You've known them for years or, whatever. And if you start to see them behave differently, it's about trying to break into the surface. Why are you breaking? Why are you acting like that? Are you sure everything's okay? And trying to get, saying, how are you? I think that is, and you ain't going to get them talking.
There was a campaign, wasn't there, to say, ask twice.
Yeah,
correct.
So, you'd say normal conversation, oh, how are you doing? But then you'd ask them, no, how are you? How are you really
Correct.
doing?
Yeah.
Look, every time someone calls you, you always say, how are you? Right? Normally.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't, I think that's just a normal thing that people say. It's about spotting their behaviour and actually knowing the person.
I think it's probably one of the most critical things affecting men today, isn't it? And, I can't remember the last time I discussed it. So maybe it's just something that's not talked about enough. I think it's a really sort of sad state of affairs that there's a lot of lives that could be saved if I think if we get out there that you can have the confidence to speak out without feeling like you're going to be judged. It's just about open conversations, really trying to be more open.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because as males, the sort of expectation is that you don't talk about these things. You just grin and bear it, get on with things. As a society, I think we're starting to move away from the fact that, males to just take things on the chin. But it's still relatively early, isn't it? This has only started in 2010, this International Men's Day. I think we're in the, it's in its infancy at the moment.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. I think, I mentioned earlier that we can all look back to particularly tough times in our lives. And I had a particularly tough time around sort of 2000 and 2014. Yeah. And my wife, Emma, suggested to me that I saw a therapist, a talk therapist. I think it's called cognitive behavioural therapist is the correct term, and straight away I was kind of like, oh no, I can't be doing with that. That's going to be difficult. And I think it was just a fear, really, of what would be unravelled or unveiled, if you like. But as soon as I did it, I mean, after the first session, I broke down in tears, and I think it cost me 40 quid, and half of the session I was crying. So I wasted £20 on tears, but yeah, I mean, it was just the release and the relief of getting that stuff off my chest. So even if you don't have a friend group, maybe where I think the thing about friend groups and talking in friend groups is that it tends to be a two-way street. Yeah. So I'll tell you something, and then you tell me something. So it's almost like a two-way sort of catharsis. That's not the same in therapy. It's kind of it's just you, and they're absorbing it all, and nothing's bouncing back. So I don't have to be there for them, but they are there for me, and it's quite a really weird thing to think. Well, hold on a minute, this is not normally what happens. Normally I have to offer something back. But so I was in therapy for about 3 years in total, and occasionally I found a good one, and I found it so sort of useful. I felt like I was a better person in general. Really, I was a better father, a better husband, a better friend. I think I was a better colleague. I think it just improved my life in ways that I couldn't possibly have imagined, really. So it's not always necessarily about that sort of friend group, and I think it's about being able to. Obviously, there's a barrier to entry because of the cost. But if you take, we have a employee assistance program. I mean, maybe you could share a bit about that, because I think if more people knew about that, and obviously, hopefully, a lot of our viewers are going to be our staff. You could sort of open up maybe some avenues to help some people that they didn't that's included in the program for free, that they didn't know was available to them.
Yes. So our employee assistance program is run by Health Assured. What I'll do, I'll share some details at the end of this video. You can click and have a look to see how to access that. It's completely free, completely confidential. They offer advice on sort of general counselling, mental health, but also legal and financial advice as well, if any employee of NJC needs it. So more details in the description. We'll also share after the video. Peter, what would you, in terms of what Reuben has just said there, it's a little bit like, I used the analogy, unpicking a thread, isn't it? So is that making that first step in realising you perhaps, or a person perhaps needs help, and reaching out to somebody, whether it's a therapist, a friend,
I didn't actually, because I mentioned like speaking up in a friend group, but what you said is actually quite right. You speak to your friends, and then they give you some problems, and you're kind of back and forth, and actually you never actually solve anything, do you?
No, that's right.
That's kind of just opened my view. The therapist is great, but it's a big, for a lot of people, they just don't want to take that first step. But it is worth it. I've done it in the past.
Maybe I was going to say
I've done it. I've done it, and it does help. It's scary at the beginning, but after the first one, the rest is quite it's easy. And the person you're speaking to isn't judging you, right? They're there for you, and they'll give you techniques to how to manage and how to improve yourself, and kind of how to get out of the situation you're in.
And I think if you go into it thinking that, I'm not going to be cured or, better after 1 or 2 sessions, it's an ongoing thing. So you may not be experiencing something, or, you may just getting things off your chest is quite helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that, really. So it's 'cause we've all probably been there, and a lot of the problems are financial. And you're worried, and you're going to bed worried about problems and things and stuff like that, and then when you actually blurt the words out, you feel a whole lot better. That's my experience, definitely, of that. And Emma, my wife, she concurs as well. She often bottles things up, and then when she says them out loud, she's like, I feel so much better now, weirdly.
Yeah.
She just got that out,
Yeah.
I've told somebody, Yeah.
And that's why these conversations, just talking about it, is so important, because I've personally seen sort of men fall down a very sort of dark path around, where they can't talk or they don't want to reach out to anybody. Obviously, then they self-medicate with alcohol, or that's why the alcoholism rate in the UK is so much higher in men as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem is knowing that you have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how you overcome that
Yeah.
kind of point, and that's difficult. But just speaking to someone, like a therapist, even if you book one session, I think you'll then start to realise actually, and that's when then you'll maybe book the second one and book the third one. But it's like going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym for once and you're not going to go back home, you're not going to see a difference.
You're not going to get six pack after
Yeah, exactly. It's that continuous, talking and getting it off your chest to stop things building up.
And that's a really good way of putting it, actually, because for physical health, we do it, don't we? There's quite a lot of people who are go running, play football, do a sport, whatever it may be. They realise that with physical health, you need to put the time and investment in. It's absolutely the same with mental health, isn't it?
But even the physical health can actually impact the mental health. Like I started playing football 5-6 years ago, and it's our roles, just a work role is quite stressful, high paced kind of role. Put that into your family kind of problems as well, and life, it's quite stressful. But football is a chance where I put the phones down, and for 1 hour you don't, you're just having fun. And I think for me that's also helped me.
So you're thinking about nothing but the football.
Exactly, that's all you're doing.
Yeah,
you're completely shutting off. So yeah.
Did you win, Pete?
I always win.
So it's only fun if you win.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Let's not talk about football. I'm a West Ham fan, if everybody didn't know.
We'll leave it there. Yeah, so just linking on to those points, Reuben, you've got another book that that you gave me a copy as well, and I can definitely sort of vouch for it. So do you want to just explain to our audience what you've got there?
Yeah, so this is the Daily Stoic, and it's written by Ryan. Well, I say written by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hansalam, and what they do is they give you a daily thought, which is based around one of the great Stoics. So Marcus Aurelius is probably one that most people are aware of. There are quite a lot of meditations. So Epictetus features quite heavily. But yeah, so why I liked this book was because I thought it's something that you can read only a page a day. So every date of the year has a page. So for example, what's today's date? Let's have a look.
19th of November.
So yeah, the 19th. See what the 19th of November gives us. So the 19th of November is Maxims from Three Wise Men. This is Epictetus. For any challenge, we should hold three thoughts at our command. Lead on God and destiny. To that goal fixed for me long ago, I will follow and not stumble. Even if my will is weak, I will soldier on. Whoever embraces necessity count as wise, skilled skilled in divine matters. If it pleases the gods, so be it. They may well kill me, but they can't hurt me. And then, so that probably, and to me really, it doesn't sound like a great deal of sense. But then the authors of this book then put it into sense and write what their take on it, and puts it in layman's terms, if you like. And I think it's quite an important book actually. If you take the time out just to learn something, or a meditation, as Marcus Aurelius would have put it, every day. I mean, I love the book Meditations, and both of our sons, my wife and my sons, as soon as I thought they would take to it.
Yeah.
I suggested them, reading meditations, and they both read it. And my youngest son actually carries a copy of the book around in his back pocket
really?
a lot of the time. Yeah. So he refers to it quite a lot. So yeah, what's interesting is these are quotes or from sort of 2,000 years ago. And it's amazing how relevant they are today.
Yeah.
But I think it's just one of those things, taking a bit of time out. It's going to take you 10 minutes to read it, maybe understand it. You might learn something. So, yeah.
Yeah, certainly when I was reading it, what I found was really helpful about it is that it helped to ground yourself and keep you. That quote talks about your the long-term goal, and sort of helps you keep grounded. And in this age of constant messages, social media, TV, etc., coming through, you can lose sight of what is important.
Yeah.
So just staying true to yourself, I found that was really useful for. I'm a big advocate of, as probably know, a big advocate of Stoicism anyway. But I found the book really useful. So yeah, check it out if you can, everyone. It is a very interesting read. Great.
Should we get you a copy, Pete?
I don't read. I've never really read a book, but I'm going to give it a go, I think.
So
get it on Audible, I think.
Take 10 minutes out every day. I'll see what that. Sometimes I miss a few days, but I think it's very interesting to just, as Kieran says, just to ground yourself and learn something. What I find really interesting, as I say, is that the problems in humanity haven't really changed much in 2,000 years. Just the medium is different, and I think.
Well, I like what you said. Because the quote you just kind of read out didn't make any kind of sense. Yeah. But if it's broken down into a way that we can actually understand, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these 3 quotes compiled by Epictetus show us in wisdom across history the themes of tolerance, flexibility, and ultimately acceptance, etc. So, they give you their take on it in layman's terms, and it's very, very, very good. I think good for the soul.
Excellent. The next topic I want to move on to is so what we said at the start around domestic violence, and certainly it was quite a revelation for me. So obviously we know that domestic violence affects far more women than it does men. But for every 3 victims, 2 will be female, but 1 will be male. So where the disparity lies is the seeking for help. So only 1 in 10 men will tell the police or a relevant authority, compared with 1 in 4 women. So that suggests that we've got a large proportion of men, again, suffering in silence and not sort of getting the help they need.
I think that's generally the hubris of men, being too proud to admit that they're being abused, which is quite sad, really. When you the statistics of 1 in 3, that's still 33% of all the cases. That's a lot of people that are not seeking help or trying to change their situation, or getting help to change their situation. But of course, I think we all think of domestic abuse as generally men against women because of the physical attributes of a man compared to a woman, etc. And I think the traditional, the man being the breadwinner, controlling the money, etc., etc. Those things have changed. We were discussing it the other day, Pete, weren't we? But most families used to be that they could survive on 1 income, and that's just not the case anymore.
Not possible.
It's not possible anymore. That's right. So and rightly so. I think, but also it's opened up the world to women where it previously wasn't. Back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. Quite oppressed and not really fulfilling their own destiny. That they can do that now, but it's a necessity for families, which is something that men have had to get used to, isn't it? but it's something definitely
Yeah.
for the good, but it's something that they need to get used to.
And that's a good point around what you made earlier about terminology, actually. So I used the term domestic violence, but perhaps domestic abuse should be more.
Yeah, because it's not always violent.
It's not violent,
Sometimes it's mental, isn't it? Mental
Yeah.
abuse. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suffered this in my youth. Had a relationship where for the most part it was a good relationship, and but particularly when my partner would drink, I would have all sorts of problems and suffered physical abuse. And it was mainly around jealousy. So there were accusations of things that I hadn't done, quite a lot of gaslighting. And it was a very difficult sort of couple of years of my life. When I look back on it now, it didn't seem quite as bad at the time, although I suppose it was normalised to me at the time. And I think only when it got a bit too much was when I had to do something about it. But it was very difficult. So what I will say is, I suppose, not talking about it at the time prevented me from healing, really. And that would have been about 12 or 13 years or whatever, where I just held all those things that happened and didn't really tell anybody, didn't tell anybody about it.
Did you realise something was wrong, like whilst you were in the moment, or was it only when you fully came out of that you recognised that as emotional abuse?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think at the time I became quite normalised to it. I suppose what I'm saying is that hopefully maybe talking about it and opening up about it. I mean, I still find it a bit uncomfortable talking about it. But I think, even if one person sees this and says, "Oh, well, Reuben was brave enough to talk about it, so can I."
Yeah. And it comes back to that education piece, doesn't it? So if we teach our boys, if we teach from a young age, or what a healthy relationship should look like. Because I remember there were kind of initiatives in school. I think we did sort of something around drug abuse, sort of entering into adolescence, but nothing around sort of what is, like you put the example, gaslighting, and what is, So if we have that awareness from an earlier age, perhaps we can, the individual could recognise when they're in a situation that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I think, had I been better equipped to understand it, I would have probably got out of the situation sooner. 100%.
Well, what I was going to say was, is I think sometimes when you're in that kind of situation, you probably think it was all okay. You kind of just dealt with it. You didn't really know it was wrong until you come out of it. And I think that's where a lot of people these days are kind of stuck in that position. They might love that person. But if someone's doing that to you, there isn't love. Well, there may be, but in my opinion, there isn't. No form of domestic violence or abuse is
not healthy love,
is acceptable. So, but it's identifying it, but also having courage, courage to kind of go, this is not right. I need to go and maybe speak to someone, or I need to go and get help. But then I think it's the worry, if of, say, you're not the breadwinner of the family and someone's bringing money in, you're going to lose your home, you're going to have a place to sleep. What do? Do you just suck it up? And
Absolutely, and it is all about having conversations like this. So if we can spur some other men to have this conversation, it may save somebody in a similar situation, and just remove some of that stigma that may exist or still exist.
Well, definitely. I think it definitely still exists. As I say to you now, I'm openly talking about it, and I still feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, we've covered some quite heavy topics there. I want to move the conversation on to the workplace, and in particular, the rights of men in the workplace. So the first thing that really pops to mind is paternity leave. So at the moment in the UK, so fathers have 1 or 2 weeks. So at the time of recording, so fathers have 1 or 2 weeks paternity leave that they're entitled to, and that is currently set at £187.18 per week, or 90% of your average weekly earnings, whichever is lower. So that's in the UK. If we compare that to some other sort of European countries, I think we all know about Sweden, perhaps, because it's a kind of a model. So Sweden, they have up to 480 days shared between parents, with 80% of salary for the first 390 days. So it's not too much of a surprise there, because Sweden sort of heralded as the model that we all aspire to. But in Spain, they give 16 weeks at 100% of salary, and in Ireland 2 weeks at €289 a week. So I mean, personally, from a HR professional, I can see that we are in the UK slightly behind in terms of both paternity and maternity rights compared to the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
But that being said, there is sort of change on the horizon. So with the changes under the Employment Rights Bill, so fathers will be allowed to split their leave into 2 separate 1-week blocks, rather than taking it all at once. The time frame for taking paternity leave will be broadened, providing more choice about when leave can be taken. And then employers will benefit from clearer notice periods, making it easier to plan for cover. So, it's still in the preliminary stages, but I'm going to pose a question. It's a bit of a rhetorical question. Could we do more as a country?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's 2 weeks isn't enough. Even if you can break it in 1 week and 1 week, 2 weeks isn't enough. And I think that just actually puts more stress on the man. They need to go to work because they're contractual, but they need to go home as well to help with the wife, help with the child.
Enjoy the child when they're a baby as well.
And right at the beginning is the key stages of building that bond. If you don't build that bond at the beginning, obviously you'll build it over time. But I think the first 4 months is
it goes by so quickly, doesn't it?
And it just click of fingers. We're nearly Christmas now, so time flies.
Yeah.
So yes, the answer is we can do better.
Yeah,
and
I think a general it's an attitude shift as well, isn't it? Because like you were saying, Reuben, the traditional sort of family model has changed over the years, and it's not just the mother.
It doesn't suit the social makeup of society now, does it? I think there's obviously a commercial aspect to this, and I think providing businesses are given fair notice and fair warning, they can prepare for it and build into their costs, etc. Yeah, so I was just sort of thinking about the the paternity leave of 2 weeks, which we've discussed isn't enough, is token at best, really. But I think I was thinking back to when my children were born, and I don't know if there was a paternity leave around even then. But that was sort of 2006, 2007. So when did that come in the UK?
Oh, I think it was around the turn of the millennium. So I want to say around 2002.
Oh, okay. So it was around
2003,
then. But I think, providing businesses are given fair warning and given notice to prepare for, which is a significant change and something that it's something that's more commensurate with the workplace now.
Yeah.
Men are there's a lot more expected of men at home, much more than there used to be. There used to be the old sort of traditional, the man would go out to work long hours and provide for the family, the main breadwinner, all that sort of thing. That's changed completely.
Yeah.
So the paternity laws need to change to suit.
Absolutely, yeah. And I remember sort of earlier on in my career, one sort of HR related welfare case that was got flagged to me was around paternity leave, and there was a new father who was sleeping in his car at lunchtime, and when he spoke to his manager around what was happening, he was saying, well, I'm just not getting any sleep. My wife's had a baby. We're both having to look after it, but
I'm doing the night
I'm
feeds.
doing the night,
Yeah, exactly.
And he actually said we need to strengthen our policies around paternity leave. And that was quite a profound moment. It really hit home then.
Yeah, I think the change that's necessary is not purely to help a man, is to help the mother.
Yeah,
because it's
the joint sort of.
And it's just such a difficult period in time for particularly a new mother, a first-time mother. Lack of sleep, sleep deprivation can lead to what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, help me out, Kieran. Where depression. Sorry, postnatal depression. And if the dad is available to in those early stages, can do the night feed or can take a shift occasionally, that's a massive help to a mother. So I think something needs to be done.
Yeah, great. And definitely we've seen some really positive changes in legislation. So the flexible working regulations, and at NJC, we take these really seriously. We've done training for managers around handling flexible working requests, encouraging those sorts of conversations alongside employee well-being. So the mental health first aiders, I think just putting mental health on the map, making it part of an everyday sort of conversation, not just, having a sheet up in the background saying contact if you need help. It's really looking after our employees at the forefront. What can we do as employers in general? What would you say in terms of championing not just men's health but everybody's sort of health?
Yeah, I think that the COVID period did a lot for workplaces and opened everybody's eyes to the idea of flexible working. It was something prior to that was definitely something that was frowned upon. And, I used to work flexibly quite a lot. If I had a big bid to put together or a big piece of work to write, I would tuck myself away in my office at home for 2 or 3 days and get on with it. I might not be seen in the office for a week. But there was still a stigma attached to it. So you come back into the office and it'd be, oh, where have you been? Oh, you've been half day, that type of thing. So I think that's been a real positive move for from, if we can take anything positive from the COVID experience, that's definitely something, is that it opened everybody's eyes to flexible working is good. It gives you much more life-work balance in today's society where a man is expected to, help out at home, be at home, be present for his children, be present for the family. It gives men that opportunity to do that. And I think that's something that we embrace here at NJC. We don't have a presenteeism outlook. We don't want people just to be present, chained to their desk. And we know that people are more productive. I know that when I've got a lot of work to do, not having that commute, I'm going to be working that extra 3 or 4 hours rather than I would be travelling. I feel better the next day because I'm not tired from the travelling. I've been there to see my children when they come home, etc. So we all know that the benefits of it, and I think we embrace that at NJC. Can we improve that and get that message out there that that's something that's acceptable? You won't be looked down upon for wanting to work more flexibly. I think we could probably send the message out there more on that front.
I think that's right across the board. So encouraging sort of men in particular, for example, have an open calendar, and proudly display, when you're not going to be available because you're doing the school pickup or drop off, and giving them the license to say don't schedule meetings during that time because I won't be there.
But I'll pick sports day. Go and enjoy it. Go and enjoy your kids running the 100 meters or whatever, and don't be under that pressure. If you can work your calendar around it, as long as your productivity is where it needs to be, that's all that matters. And absolutely. I agree.
The only thing I would add is all of that is great. Obviously, there's roles where you can't. You physically have to come into the work. It's also the financial value associated to coming to the office. If you can stay at home 2 days, travel isn't cheap these days.
No.
And if that gives people extra quids back in their pocket to spend on their family for a meal, that all goes towards health, right? Mental health, well-being, and all that. So I think that's
it's all about the balance. And I mean, people have been talking about life-work balance for decades, actually. And I think it's only now since COVID that people really understand what it actually is.
It's gaining some momentum.
On the back of what you said, Reuben and Kieran, it's and obviously the ops director for NJC, it's all the frontline workers, right? So it's quite difficult sometimes for them to work flexible because the client demands. But as you know, working with you for the last 12 months, we've kind of developed our policies around that, where we encourage that. We encourage the requests, and we've done a lot, and we've worked with our clients to adopt that flexible approach.
Yeah, just flexible shifts, aren't they? Where possible.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult in the cleaning industry because obviously certain things need to be done at certain times, and toilets aren't going to clean themselves, and there are certain times where that flexibility just isn't possible. But I think if we can be as flexible as we possibly can, we're doing our bit to help the life-work balance for all of our staff.
And the only thing for me, say 7 years ago when I was a manager, it was the previous companies I would work for. They would be like, nope, that's the shift. That's what you got to work. However, 7 years later in the position I am, actually, no, speak to the person. What do we actually need? And actually, can you move that shift by 2 hours? Does it impact the service? No, it doesn't. So why can't we do that? And I think just being flexible, listening to what they need. It might not always work, but I believe we will find a solution for you. If the employee tells us, we will find a solution. Whether that's moving from a nighttime to a morning shift, working a little bit later. Normally, small tweaks will be possible.
So I think the investment that we've made in technology recently, and particularly NJC Pulse, gives us the ability to look at flexible working in detail, look at shift patterns, and gives us those data-driven sort of insights to enable us to spot where we could change things to be more flexible. I think that's really important, and that's only going to get better and better the more we develop the system.
I definitely concur on that. I think from a HR perspective, so previously in my career, starting out, flexible working requests used to land on sort of the manager's desk or get emailed. Immediate knee-jerk response would be, well, we can't do it. These are the hours. Whereas now, as a society, I think managers are shifting to look at, well, why can't it be accommodated? They look at it, they, like you said, talk to the individual sort of before making that knee-jerk sort of reaction. Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been an absolute privilege discussing this topic with you, and we've had some very poignant conversations. If we can close with some final thoughts, that would be really useful. So, Peter, I'll go with you first.
Oh, you put me on the spot now. No, look, thanks, Kieran, for inviting me, and the reason, like I said at the beginning, was coming on was to try and even what I talk about, or try, just get our discussions out there, get people talking, and it's okay to talk, But if anyone's going through stuff, because let's be honest, everyone in this room here today will be going through or has gone through something, right? It's just about talking. Try and reach out. You won't be judged. We live in a world now where, whilst I think the stigma is still there, we've got to break that stigma. But we can only do that if we all join forces and actually start talking.
Thank you. Reuben?
Yeah, I agree with what Peter said, and I think to add to that, I think we've got to remember that masculinity is a force for good, and if it's honest and people are reliable, they work hard, and men do all the good things that we know that we can, then masculinity is a force for good in home, work, community, and there's so much value to add if men are confident enough to be able to express themselves and open up and have honest discussion. And I think one of the key points is emotional honesty without losing that resilience. So, we still want those traditional values of being, that strong, silent type and being able to handle things and take things on. But when things get heavy, it's about having the emotional honesty and emotional intelligence to say, I need help, and to put your hand up and not be fearful that you're going to be judged if you do that.
Yeah.
And I think if we can teach ourselves, which we're still learning all the time, we can teach the next generation and the next generation to just be more open and honest. We're going to have less victims of male suicide, and people are going to, we're going to, help people with depression, help men to get through the struggles and the pressures that modern life is throwing at them, and it's changing all the time. But I don't think the traditional values are lost, and we need to take the traditional values of what we think it is to be a man, but build on that and make it better. And there's been so many positive moves, in my life. I'm 53 years old now. I've seen a lot, and men are much better off nowadays in terms of how we live and how we have adapted, I think, to away from the old stereotypes, and I think it gives a much more fulfilling life to focus on your emotional intelligence and try to read around the subject and try to improve your knowledge all the time about what keeps you healthy. I mean, there are a few things. I mean, I was sort of saying about earlier on we were talking about therapy, but there are things you can do yourself. We've talked about taking time out to read something meaningful every day. I mean, I practice Wim Hof breathing every day. So every day takes about, you have to take about 20 minutes to do it. But I know for those 20 minutes, I'm going to be focusing on my breathing. I have some of my best ideas when I'm doing it because I'm relaxed, I think. But it also just grounds me and settles me. Yeah. And if people, more men can learn to be able to sort of take a bit of time to look after themselves, I think we'd all be better off.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're on the precipice of a new era where this is really being, this is going to come to the forefront, and having conversations like this really facilitates, getting that message out there. So thank you very much again, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, Kieran. Thank you.
Thank you. And a big thank you to all of you listening and watching today. As always, let's keep the conversation flowing. So please like, subscribe and comment. If you've been affected by any of the issues raised today, we do have details of our employee assistance program available in the description. Or if you just want to contribute to the discussion, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again for joining. We will see you again on the next edition. Bye for now.